Today we're going to create a report application, and the type of code that we're going to use is this option here, native PHP code for MySQL, and that will give us nice fast code that is specifically designed to work with MySQL. We'll click that, and WizzyWeb automatically connects to the default database for a data source, which is the local host, which simply means that is local server running here at WizzyWeb.com, and that's where the database is, and that's where the code is running, so it is therefore local. When you enter your host, it will be at your site when you create your application, so it'll be at your site somewhere .com and your database name and your username and password. Or you can also enter your IP address, whatever that is, if for some reason your domain name doesn't work. Sometimes you need to enter the IP address. It depends on how your server is set up. If neither one of them will let you connect, then you need to talk to your system administrator and make sure that remote access is enabled. Okay. And so let's set this back to localhost so we can continue to work. And what I want to mention here also is that in WizzyWeb you simply have objects here. This is the object selector in this drop-down list box, and these are the properties down here. So you just have objects and properties, and then you select objects, and then you set the properties for the objects down here. And there is a help item for each property. So let's say we didn't know what host was. We could click on that and get the help info for it and read it, and we get an example of how to use it, and then we click the back button, and that brings us right back to where we were. Alright, so the first object we want to select is master view, which is simply the first screen that the user will see when they run your application. And below where the properties are here is your application preview. So if we scroll down, we will see the application preview here, and so this would be the master view of the report, the first screen that the user would see. And what we have here is just the first name being displayed, and what's making that happen is the SQL property here is set to select asterisk, simply means all. Select all from the table name, which is employees. That's the first database table inside the database that we connected to back in the data source object, which was WizzyWeb_DB1. So employees is a table inside of WizzyWeb _DB1 database. Okay, and WizzyWeb also gave us a default field to display, and that's here, and you can change this to whatever you want. This is the default. Normally you would probably want more fields to be shown. Let's say, so we have field 2, and I'm gonna add field 3 and field 4. So you just refer to field names as 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And WizzyWeb will figure out what those fields are and display them. So now we're going to show fields 2, 3, and 4. And we'll get to this field in a second. This is what they call the unique identifier or the primary key. But we're going to keep it simple for now and just click refresh. And then we're going to scroll down and preview, and as you can see, now we see those extra 2 fields, fields 3 and 4. So we have fields 2, 3, and 4. So we have first name, field 2, last name, field 3, and the city is field 4. So you can easily make your report look however you want by changing the format property. Okay. So now let's get to this here. When I put the mouse over here, you'll see down below in the status bar it says employee ID equals 1, and then the next record it'll say employee ID equals 21 down the bottom here in the status bar. Now what's happening is in order to get to drill down into that record, you need a way for your database to be able to find it. And how you do that is you use what they call a unique identifier. In this case, it's the employee ID in the database. Okay, so let's see how that works. We go to the detail view, which is where you will go next. Select that object from the object selector, and you get again a default SQL statement that is probably very close, if not exactly what you want to use. And what that is saying is basically select all from the employees table in the database where the employee ID equals, and this is a variable, and so this value gets passed from where we just were. Gets passed from here. So in this case, employee ID equals 1. 1 will get passed to the detail view. So this will equal 1 when they click on that. So then it'll read select all from employees where employee ID equals 1. And that's the key to finding out which record the user wants to see in the database. So if we run that, we'll see that in action. So the first one is Jimmy Dean Boston, and again you see down the bottom employee ID equals 1, and we click that, and that goes and drills down into that record, and you see the 1 there verifying that it found the record they were looking for. But we would want to add a little more here so they can see the details of that record. We'll get to that in a minute. So we're just going to click the back button, back again, to get into WizzyWeb. And again, you can click the run button at any time you want in WizzyWeb to see your application actually run. It's not a simulation, it's the real code running on the server. Okay, so we want to see more than just the employee ID when they drill down and click in there. We want to see first name, which is field 2 if I remember correctly. So you can just add as many fields here as you want. Field 4 and field 5, and then we just want to put an HTML break on each one, format it a little neater, so you can get your format of your records exactly how you want by changing this field here. So let's refresh that and run it again, and let's see what we get. So Jimmy Dean Boston down the bottom. Down here you'll see the employee ID when I put the mouse over it, which is again 1. Click that, and now we see the detail view in the format that we set it up to do. Okay, click the back button again to get back into WizzyWeb. So that's the detail view. So we have the master view, which is here, and then click here, that's the detail view. And that's basically all a report is. Some reports just have a master view, but it's common to have a master view and then a detail view. So now we're basically done if we just wanted to show those records, and how we would save the code is simply click the code button, enter our username and password, and then we get the code here. And this is native PHP code for MySQL. Select all, copy, and paste that into your favorite text editor, which is Notepad for me. And this is the native PHP code for MySQL. Simply save that to your computer, FTP it to your website, run it, and you're done. One thing to note here is that it's very important that you name it correctly. In this case, it's report.php. That's the default name. So you need to make sure that you name it report.php or the script will not work. Okay, so that's lesson 1 for creating a report application with WizzyWeb.